Hoş geldiniz öncelikle. Ben açılışı yapmak üzere sözü sanırım önce sana mı veriyorum Sena?
Ben
Yoksa
ben alayım hocam.
tamam.
Saygıdeğer katılımcılar. İnovasyon için Eğitim Vakfı tarafından düzenlenen International Conference on Climate Change, Energy Transition and Sustainability konferansına hoş geldiniz. Bilim insanlarının çok disiplinli konularda araştırma sonuçlarını Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak sunduğu ve tartıştığı bu çevrimiçi konferansın tüm paydaşlar için verimli geçmesini diliyoruz.
Dear participants, welcome to the International Conference on Climate Change, Energy Transition and Sustainability organized by Education for Innovation Foundation. We wish this online conference where scholars present and discuss their research results on multidisciplinary topics in Turkish and English to be productive for all the stakeholders of the conference.
Sizlere açılış konuşmalarını yapmak üzere Sayın Doçent Doktor Gamze Sart'ı takdim ediyorum. İstanbul Üniversitesi Cerrahpaşa'da yüksek öğretimin inovasyon ve teknoloji odaklı geleceği hakkında doçent olarak akademik çalışmalarına devam eden İnovasyon için Eğitim Vakfı'nın ortağı Doçent Doktor Gamze Sart, HAEF Hasan Ali Yücel Eğitim Fakültesi'nde görev almaktadır. İUK Proje ve Teknoloji Ofisi'nde Patent Kurulu'nda yönetim kurulu üyesidir. Avrupa Birliği Horizon 2020 kapsamında özellikle biyoteknoloji ve IT gibi alanlardaki kümelenmeler üzerinde patent ve lisanslama direktörüdür. Üniversite ve Sanayi İşbirliği ve Birleşmiş Milletler Sürdürülebilir Kalkınma Amaçları konularında çalışmış Sayın Sert, her sene 500'den fazla öğrencinin yurt dışında Oxford, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, MIT, Princeton, US Berkeley gibi üniversitelerde lisans, yüksek lisans ve doktora seviyesinde yerleşmesine destek olmaktadır. Sayın Doçent Doktor Gamze Sart konuşmalarını yapmak üzere davet ediyorum.
We would like to introduce you Associate Professor Dr. Gamze Sart to make the opening speeches. Associate Professor Gamze Sart, partner of the Education for Information Foundation, continues her academic studies as an associate professor at Istanbul University Cerrahpaşa on innovation and technology-focused future of the higher education and works at HAEF Hasan Ali Yücel Faculty of Education. She is a board member of the Patent Board at the Project and Technology Office Protec. She is the director of Patent and Licensing within the scope of European Union Horizon 2020, especially in clusters in fields such as biotechnology and IT. Mrs. Sart, who has worked on university and industry cooperation and the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, supports more than 500 students every year to be placed abroad to universities such as Oxford, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, MIT, Princeton, UC Berkeley at undergraduate, master's, and PhD levels. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Gamze Sart to make her opening speech.
I would like to thank you on behalf of the Foundation, Education for Innovation, and I would like to thank specifically Professor Yüksel and also the other organization members. Actually, more than 3 years, we are involving in these kinds of conferences, specifically, let's say, try to solve the most difficult and challenging problems of the world and also people, students, and the young generation. This time, in this conference, we are specifically going to discuss about sustainability and effects of the climate change on the cities, on the human beings, and on the nature. I hope that during the conferences, we are trying to find good solutions and also good frontiers for the coming, let's say, future. I would like to leave the space for the very, very special guests. I know Professor Tamer for years, and also I'm so happy to see, let's say, other members that Pauline and also the other, let's say, participants. Specifically, I would like to thank again and again Professor Esra Yükselaçı and also, the other hidden members like Levent Altay and other Hande and also Funda Sezgin. I hope that this conference will be very good for the next generation because more than 200 students are going to listen, and then they are going to participate in the best universities again, like Oxford, let's say Stanford and Caltech. We are so happy. I would like to mention again, since they have already participated in these conferences, most of our students have the chance to find scholarship even from MIT, Caltech, and also Harvard and Stanford. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Gamze Sart hocamıza bu anlamlı konuşmalar için teşekkür ediyoruz. Sağ olun.
We would
Şimdi
like to thank
sizlere
Associate Professor Dr. Sart for her speech.
Şimdi sizlere ikinci konuşmacımız Profesör Doktor Tamer Atabarut'u takdim ediyorum. Boğaziçi Üniversitesi İnşaat Mühendisliği bölümünden mezun olan Profesör Tamer Atabarut, yüksek lisans ve doktora derecelerini Boğaziçi Üniversitesi'nden çevre teknolojileri alanında almıştır. Sürdürülebilirlik, iklim değişikliği, döngüsel ekonomi, çevre teknolojileri ve yaşam boyu eğitim konularında 100'e yakın ulusal ve uluslararası projede yer alan ve 17 kitabın editörlüğünü yapan Profesör Atabarut, halen Boğaziçi Üniversitesi'nde öğretim üyesi, UNSDNC Birleşmiş Milletler Sürdürülebilir Kalkınma Çözümleri Ağı Türkiye İcra Kurulu üyesi ve Boğaziçi Üniversitesi Yaşam Boyu Eğitim Merkezi Müdürüdür. Sayın Profesör Tamer Atabarut'u konuşmalarını yapmak üzere davet ediyorum.
And now we would like to introduce you our second keynote speaker, Professor Tamer Atabarut. Professor Tamer Atabarut graduated from Boğaziçi University Department of Civil Engineering and received his master's and PhD degrees in environmental technologies from Boğaziçi University. Professor Atabarut, who took part in nearly 100 national and international projects in sustainability, climate change, circular economy, environmental technologies, and lifelong education, and edited 17 books, is currently faculty member at Boğaziçi University and UNSDSN, United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. He is a member of Turkey Executive Board and Director of Boğaziçi University Lifelong Education Center. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Atabarut to make his speech.
Thank you very much for giving the word to me. I would like to say hello and good morning to everyone. And also I would like to first extend my sincere thanks and gratitude for inviting me such a prestigious and important event today. And I would like to also send my heartfelt thanks to my colleague, my friend Gamze Sart, and I'm very pleased to see her again here. And also a special thanks to Esra Hoca. She invited me for such an event. Now I would like to start with my presentation, and I would like to just contribute my PowerPoint presentation. And now I am sharing with you all. So today we are starting this year's topic, the conference on climate change, energy transition, and sustainability. And we all know that these issues are getting more and more important day by day. And today, in general, in half an hour, I would like to just give some brief explanations, what I have in my mind, in my knowledge, I would like to share you. So I put my title of this speech as Sustainability Agenda Road to Net Zero. Of course, it's a huge, huge topic. I cannot cover all of them, but I will intend to share some of them at least. So what I am going to talk you today is I will start with a general introduction, and then I would like to just summarize the current situation that we have been exposed right now. So the climate change, the inequalities in the world, the increasing the pressure over the world and over all the habitats, including the human and all the other kinds. And also we will just talk about the climate change, which is a major, major force, and it is changing our today and future, of course. And then I would like to just give some information about the SDGs and about the position, the current achievement stage of the SDGs. And when I am doing this, I'm going to just refer to our recent report, Sustainable Development Report. And finally, I will conclude my words with some remarks from the last global summits, because last week in New York, there were several very important events. Of course, one of them is the General Assembly of UN, and the other one is the SDG Summit, Climate Change Week, and there are lots of side events there. And concerning my position, I was there, and I got some remarks, information, and I would like to share with you. So first, I would like to just introduce my network that I have been involved in. UNSTSN is a loose network in it. It's a United Nations initiative, and it was established in 2012 by the initiation of the former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and together with Professor Jeffrey Sachs, they initiated the network, as I said, in 2012. And starting from 2014, it was also founded in Turkey. And we are very proud to hosting this as Boğaziçi University as a national network. So all over the world, we have 55 networks. Those are the regional and the national networks. And altogether, we have around 1,900 members. So those members are the institutional members. I mean the universities, because it's a network of universities and research centers. So altogether, we are around 1,900. So it's a huge number, I think, for such a network. And we have some regular meetings, some works, and let's have a look what we are doing. And I also put our webpage addresses in this one. So if you want, you can have a look for a more detailed information about our networks. Dilek Hocam, siz çevirmeyeceksiniz de ben böyle şey yapıyorum. Çevirecek değilsiniz değil mi? Yani ara vermedim.
Yok hocam, siz İngilizce
Tamam.
sunum yapıyorsunuz diye
Tamam,
şey yapmadım.
okay.
Tamam hocam.
So what we are doing as SDSN, we are following the trends. So we are collecting data. We have different inventory globally. So we are getting the data from different sources, and we are publicizing this. So if you want to know current information, for instance, current conditions, what's going on in biodiversity, etc., you can go directly to the SDGs today, and you can get all the information from there. Another issue is reporting. So we are getting the data related with the progress of the SDGs in annually, but in country-based. So we are also collecting them and reporting them annually. So I'm going to share some latest information from this report also in this presentation. And we are also proud of the SDG Academy, which is an online academy. It's free of charge, but if you want to get a certificate, of course, you can go to one university and you can get the certificate and you can pay some little money for this. But in general, it is asynchronous and synchronic, and they are free of charge. And we are also initiated another movement. It's related with the K-12 schools. So under the umbrella of global schools, we are gathering the K-12 teachers and also schools, and how we can develop the training programs, education plans, and how we can teach the teachers to just improve their information and knowledge about the SDGs. So in general, as we university, we have different tasks and roles. Of course, one of them is the research. We are research-based institutions. Another one is education. So is another our secondary task is our education to give to our students, which will be the graduates for a while. And the third one is, of course, the external leadership. So we believe that universities has another role, a third mission. We can call this as external leadership. And also during all the operations at the university and the governments should be in parallel with the SDGs and sustainability issues. So this is what and how we approach as SDSN to these sustainable development issues. So I think most of us will admit that the world is changing. And the world is changing very, very rapidly. I think we all agree this. So nowadays, we are talking more and more about some transformations. One of them is digital transformation, and we expose this, especially after the pandemic and during the pandemic. We all, I think, admit that it was speed up during the pandemic, the digital transformation. So we realized for instance, the communication and better networking. Also, we realized the importance of the data. So data mining is getting more important, technology is improving, automation, AI, virtual reality. So those are the transformation concerned with the digital transformation. But we have another transformation that we have been focusing more day by day, which is also related with our today's topic, is green transformation. So nowadays we are exposed to twin transformation, which is namely digital and green. So we are talking, but realizing are different issues. So if we can get to accomplish them, so I think we will have a different world. Let's have a look at the risks, global risks. In annual base, also there are different reports have been published. And one of them is the report of the WEF, World Economic Forum. They have been preparing such reports annually, and I think it was the 18th of them. So in their 18th report, they put such a scenario for our future. In the very short period of time, in 2 years perspective, there are some risks. And it is starting with the cost of living. So we are all just saying that, complaining that prices are going up, high inflation, etc. So it is also in the agenda globally. And the second one is the natural disasters and extreme weather events. And then geo-economic confrontation, and then failure to mitigate the climate change. If you look to the left side, you will see some of them just denoted by green. So those green are showing that they are related with the environment and related issues. And if you look to the 10 years perspective, those green areas are in the first 4 of them. Again, climate change, again, failure to climate change adaptation, extreme weather, which is due to the, of course, climate change mostly, and the biodiversity loss. So the major risks in this 2 years and 10 years, especially in the 10 years perspective, are depend on the climate change and also biodiversity and environmental issues. So if we just have generally just summarize this, in 2 terms, the cost of living, polarization, and climate change are very obvious, very clear. And in 10 years, what we expect, the climate change and biodiversity damage will put also more pressure to our future. So how we can handle them, how we can balance them. So we need cooperation against the climate change. It's also written there, and we also know this from our discussions. And strengthening health, education, and finance. So those are the roles that we have to follow. And of course, we have to speed up the transition to green economy. And especially we should focus on the prioritization of ESG concerns, what we are doing, especially in the industry cases. And we all know that our resources in the world are limited, and we are consuming them very rapidly. So there is a terminology, it's called as overshoot day, and every year it is just followed by this global ecological footprint network, and they are putting those values. So in 2023, if someone will live, if for instance is as a Canadian or Kuwaitian or Turkish, when they are going to finish their resources, it is shown there. So in theoretically, we have to consume or finish or use. Use is better, not consume is not good. We use our the resources for our demands, and till the end of the December. So it should be annual budget. It should be, but we are consuming more and more, and so therefore we need 1.7 Earth sources for this demanding pattern. So this cannot be, of course, get the resources because we have scarcity about resources. So we should keep in our mind that we have limited sources, we have the scarcity, so we have to just take care of the future generations. And unfortunately, there are lots of tragedies are ongoing in the world. So there is a rising inequality. 7 out of 10 people lives in the countries where income inequality in the world. And the World Food Program reports that more than 800 million people go to their bed hungry. Can you imagine? We are living in the 21st century, in 2023, and people are going to their bed without enough food. This cannot be acceptable in them. And on the other hand, we are wasting a lot. So 1/3 of the food produced are also going to the, unfortunately, to the landfills, to the dump areas. So this is very critical. So this is also an important social issue, how we can balance this inequality in the world. And on the other hand, there is getting a more and more important issue is the climate change. We are getting more and more exposed to the greenhouse effect, and we are living the climate change in every day in our daily life. Previously, it was talked about like a scenario, like a story, like a movie, but it is not. We are now living the climate change. So there are lots of data about this. This is showing that it is going much more worse scenario. So in the just we lived in a couple of months, there were heat waves in more of the part of the world, and especially in Europe, we also suffered from this. So if you look to this European Union agency, they are just showing that how increased the temperature comparatively with the previous years in June. So we are under this climate change, and there is a global temperature increase. But simultaneously, we are exposed to another issue related with the climate change is the precipitation. So the precipitation is changing. In some parts of the world, we are getting heavy rain or thunders, storms, etc. In some places, we are not taking rain anymore, and it is getting an arid area more. So there is also imbalance. Can you imagine? So we are getting the rain in a one day, which is you can get in 50 days, so or more. So this is another issue that we have to just focus on, and very, very critical. So today we are living in a very tight budget in terms of the water, but with the amplifying impact of the climate change, we are expecting the water stress is going to be just increase in the coming years. So this is the World Resource Institute projection for 2014, and it's showing that the alarms are ringing in most of the countries, and one of them is unfortunately Turkey for this. So actually, there are lots of people are living in a water stressed countries, but it is going to be more in the coming future, which is expected. Another issue is the sea level rise. So the ice, especially the polar ices are melting due to the climate change, and it is causing the increase of the seawater level. And it is the recent values are shown in this diagram, and it is almost 10 inch, so it is around 25 centimeters. And what we know after this sea level rises, we are going to lose the lands, and there are lots of area which are the people are living in the low-lying coastal areas. The Secretary General of UN make a statement about this, and he stated that 900 million people live in low-lying coastal areas, and sea level is expected to be rise to 1 to 1.6 meters. So in 80 years perspective, 250 to 400 million people are expected to move from their original location. And it's expected that if there will be 1 meter of sea level rise, it is around 100 million people is going to move. So this means a huge number. So we are just now complaining about the migration. Huh? We are not controlling the migration due to the economical crisis, war crisis, etc. But now extra, we have another terminology now, okay? And the new terminology is called as climate migrants. So those climate migrants are going to increase, it's estimated like this. So how we are sure about the climate change? Of course, we are making the tracking of the measurements. So the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere is increasing day by day. And before the Industrial Revolution, the atmospheric concentration of the carbon dioxide level is around 280. At maximum, it was 300 ppm. But now it was more than 400 ppm. Now, in the recent value that I have just checked yesterday, while I was reviewing my presentation, the data coming from Mauna Loa Observatory is we reached almost 420 ppm. And it was said that in order to control 1.5 degrees Celsius, as far as I remember, it should be the maximum 430 ppm. So we are consuming more, we are giving more and more carbon dioxide or carbon equivalent emissions, not only carbon dioxide, of course, methane and other composites, of course. And those are also increasing day by day. I just talk about the imperative, about the society. There's also another imperatives. Those imperatives are related with the climate change also. So if you look to the country base, the emissions coming from the rich people and from the lower income people are different. And there's also a huge gap there. For instance, in US, this gap is much more evident. In others, maybe it is a bit less than this. But so also they are living in the same country, the high income and low income earning people are having different emissions, and this is another issue to be discussed. So we are expecting that the poor countries, but in the poor countries, the poorest people are going to be more adversely affected due to the climate change. So there are some pledges, and the countries are making some pledges, especially related with the Paris Agreement. The countries are putting their trends, how they are going to cut the emissions in and they are reporting every 5 years. So there are some pledges. Also, companies are putting the pledges, but even those pledges are going to be realized. That's not enough to control the 1.5 degree Celsius increase, which is admitted in the Paris Agreement. So we need more tough and more strict cutting policies. So the current policies are showing that we are going to end up around 3 degrees Celsius. So which is not we aimed, of course. There's a road to net zero in the country. So they are putting the plans and promises that they are going to have the net zero. So net zero means that the carbon emissions that you are going to give to the atmosphere and emitting from the atmosphere should be in balance. Okay, this is the net zero in a very simply explanation. So some countries are put their targets related to this. For instance, Turkey said that, okay, we are going to reach to net zero in 2053. Of course, this is not sufficient. If you just put the premises of the pledge, then you have to fulfill with your action plans, how you are going to reach net zero. So in order to just cut these emissions, there should be some milestones. There should be some pathways to just cut the emissions. So in different sectors, we have to cut those related with, of course, with the energy sector, industry, transportation, buildings. So there should be some scenarios and there should be some innovations, innovative approach, how we are going to cut the emissions in order to reach this level. And let's have a look to our country a bit closer. Okay, in the Europe, there are the sources of electricity are shown in the left side of my presentation, the country space. In Turkey, for instance, our major source is coal. It is shown as black here. For instance, if you look to the Nordic countries, there are some hydro powers there. There are wind powers. Okay, in some countries there are nuclear power plants. So it's changing, or some gas dependent. But in our country, if you look to the primary energy sources, those are the coal, of course, in the majority, almost 35%. And then natural gas is coming. So in total, as fossil fuels are more than 50%, majority in our country. Yes, of course, we can just admit that the hydro and wind power generation and especially sun investments are increasing, and the wind and sun is going to be expected to raise more. But if we can manage to change this, so if we have the majority is coming from the renewables, then there will be another scenario for us. Otherwise, it is not easy to reach those promises, those pledged to 2053. So in general, what I would like to tell you, what I would like to summarize for our current position is not good. So we are in the periods just grow, economically grow, no matter how it is. So we have those the crisis, the imbalances, unsustainable issues, both in economy, ecology, and social terms. So, and the climate crisis is expecting those risks and pressure. And how we will solve this? There is indeed a magic scenario. It is the SDGs. It was declared in 2015 by UN. And in 2015, UN make a declaration and put an agenda for the world. And the countries of the United Nations, the members of them, admit this. So we are all binded with this agenda. So with this binded agenda, there are 17 goals, sustainable development goals, that we have to achieve till 2030. And in the scope of this, there are 5 P's: people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and planning. So those are the perspective of this. So we have to save our planet. In a healthy planet, we have a healthy and more socioeconomically better conditions for the people, and then we will need we will get the prosperity, and we will live in a peaceful world. And in order to just have this all, we need partnership for the goals. So this is the backbone, 5 P's. But we have to reach those 17 goals. But if you look to our annual report of the recent one, it was just declared in the middle of this summer, our president made the presentation, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and we have been following an index, SDG index, and as a first time, this index showed that instead of increasing, it started decreasing. So starting from early years, there is an increase in the SDG index. But especially starting from the pandemic years, it's going to just slow down, and now it is going back. So it is very critical. So when we analyze more, there is a reversal in progress in 15 of them, of the SDGs, and 67 of the SDGs goals, the targets, they are limited or no progress, and only 18 of them, 18% of them achieved on track. So there are 5 countries are better, and 5 countries are in a very bad condition, and it was just shown in this slide. In general, if you look globally, our records are not showing good. Okay, so if those are red, we get the bad score. If we will fulfill the achievement, we will get the green. But if you look, none of them are green globally. So we have lots of red, orange, and yellow. So this is showing that we have a long path to just fulfill and achieve SDGs. In a ranking of the countries, there have been ranked 166 countries, and the Nordic countries are in the top. And Turkey is in the 72nd ranking. So this is our score. In some of the SDGs, we are in a good position, but in most of them, there are lots of challenging are expected. So in our case, we have many red, orange, and yellow also. I'm not going to the details due to the we have a limited time. I would like to just wrap up with the remarks from the last global summits, as I mentioned in the beginning. So during those summits, at the end of the General Assembly, UN General Assembly, there was a political declaration, and there are some good news, but if they are sufficient or not, we have to just think. So it is good that all the leaders shared their commitments about the SDGs. So this is good news, okay? And they want to also expedite this. They want to speed up for this. So it is another good issue. But on the other hand, we just passed the half of the years, the period of, I told you, in 2015 to 2030. So we have 15 years and we passed the half of it. So in the half of the period, we have not very good achievements. So I hope in the last half we will get this. But if you look to the real scenario, the country commitments are far away from the curb, the emissions, the carbon emissions, I mean. And also the financing of the SDGs are not well enough, so they are very limited. Let's have a look what the leaders from different positions told about this, okay? You know, the Director General Müller was there, and he made a speech there in our conference, ICSD conference, which was convened by the SDSN. And he said that, okay, we have the technological capacity, we have the capital for solutions. What is needed is the ambition and the political will. So those are just not enough to accomplish this. Our president, Jeffrey Sachs, said the gap between the low income and high income economies are continuing to grow, and this is adversely impacting the sustainable growth. And with this gap increase, the crisis, due to the crisis, this gap is increasing, unfortunately, more and more. So we need finance, but there is Müller was saying that there are finance resources. Also, Jeffrey Sachs is saying there are resources, but they are not spending in the right way. So we need a political will and ambition for this. What about a few of them? Another one. One of the very well-known academic and researcher, Professor Johan Rockström was also there, and he said that we have 9 planetary boundaries. And if you look to this slide again, for those 9 planetary boundaries, 6 of them were just increased, and we passed the planetary boundaries in 6 of them. So it is very critical. So we are giving more and more nutrients to the water bodies, to the land, etc., or the novel entities. So those are the limits are unfortunately are behind of us. And G20 report is saying that we have to spend $3 trillion extra for needed by 2030. And 60% of them is needed for climate change and 40% of the SDGs. And if you look in the gross GDP of the world, it is around 3%, a bit more than 3%. So there are the money, there are available money, but those should be targeted just for those SDGs and climate change. And another shocking or just making interesting remark is coming from Professor Hansen. Professor Hansen was saying that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit is long death, and 2 degrees Celsius is even on the deathbed. So this is so critical, and he just underlined that there should be some steps to just expedite to fight against the climate change. So we need the rising the price on carbon, East and West cooperation, and actions to restore the cooler climate. And for this, he just boldly underlined and mentioned that we need energy transition. So we need to change our power generation. We have to change our systems, and we need also carbon capture technologies. So also the International Energy Association is also mentioning about this. So we have to cut the fossil fuels in the recent years. So by 2030, it's expected to decrease the demand 25%, which means that 35% emissions cut. And by 2050, the fossil fuel demand should be fall down 8%. So if those scenarios will function, then we can still have chance. The agency is saying that. But this means that we have to make the investments, and new investment, just only the renewable energies, not to the fossil fuels. So not anymore oil and gas projects, not anymore thermal power plants. So those the world approach should be like this. And as STSN, we are also supporting one approach. We believe that to achieve the SDGs, there should be 6 transformations. If we can manage to reach those 6 transformations, we can also reach the 17 goals. So we are trying to just promote those, and in order to make those 6 transformations. I'm not going to read them, but I think it's readable there. So if we can succeed those transformations, we can get the SDGs by 2030. So we are living in a very different world. World is changing. So we should be have a different mindset. So in order to change our mindset, we need education, we need lifelong learning, and of course, technological and innovative approach should be also expedited. So I would like to just call everyone to go action for SDGs right now, and not only the political figures, not only the leaders, but all of us should get hand to hand and go action together for our next generations. Thank you for listening to me. And if you have any questions, remarks, I will be pleased to get. And also I've put my email, so for further communication and further discussions, I will be happy to get your remarks. Thank you so much.
Sayın Profesör Doktor Tamer Karabulut'a değerli konuşmaları için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Katılımcılarımızın sorusu varsa alabiliriz.
We would like to thank Professor Atabarut for his major contribution. Is there anyone who wants to contribute or ask any questions?
Şimdi sizlere üçüncü konuşmacımız Alman-Türk Ticaret ve Sanayi Odası, Kamu ile Teşvikli Projeler, Pazar Araştırmaları ve Fuarlar Bölümü Müdürü Pauline Seyfert'i takdim ediyorum. Enerji dönüşümü ve yeşil hidrojen, yenilenebilir enerjiler ve sanayinin karbonsuzlaştırılması gibi yeşil dönüşüm konularında çalışan Sayın Seifert, Almanya ve Türkiye arasında kamu ve özel sektörle işbirliği içinde ikili işbirliği ve projeleri desteklemek ve Alman-Türk Enerji Ortaklığı'nın enerji sekreterliğini yönetmektedir. Halen İstanbul Ticaret Üniversitesi'nde uluslararası ticaret alanında doktora yapmakta ve Avrupa Birliği sınırda karbon düzenleme mekanizmasının Türk-Alman ilişkileri bağlamındaki potansiyel ekonomik etkilerine odaklanmaktadır. Sayın Pauline Seyfert'i konuşmalarını yapmak üzere davet ediyorum.
Now we would like to invite our third speaker, Head of Department Public and Funded Project, Market Consulting and Trade Fairs, Pauline Seifert. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pauline Seifert for her speech. Mrs. Seifert mainly focuses on energy transition and green transition topics such as green hydrogen, renewable energy, and decarbonization of industry. In this context, her role includes supporting bilateral cooperation and projects in collaboration with the public and private sector between Germany and Turkey, as well as managing the Energy Secretariat of the German-Turkish Energy Partnership. She is currently pursuing PhD in International Trade at Istanbul University of Commerce, focusing on the potential economic impact of the European Union carbon border adjustment mechanism in the context of German-Turkish relations. We would like to thank her for her speech.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, and good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I want to thank Esra Hoca. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and also Gamze Hanım, thank you for being among you today, and all the distinguished speakers to talk about such an important topic from a global perspective. Climate change is the challenge of our generation, which we must tackle immediately through actions and cooperation on a global scale. Climate protection and increasing levels of sustainability are therefore essential. And this is why we are here today to talk about how we can make the global agenda until 2030 happening. To reach net zero emissions and increase sustainability in all areas of life, we must work together to form and implement actions accordingly. As already mentioned, we can see that especially between the countries that we mostly work on every day as the German-Turkish Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which are Germany and Turkey, we can really see that the interest and also cooperation efforts are continuously increasing. We are very, very lucky to have a partnership in place on a ministerial level for over 10 years now, which is the Turkish-German Energy Partnership, where the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action, as well as the Turkish Energy Ministry and Ministry for Natural Resources work together on the topic of energy transition, but also focusing on the expansion of renewables, on topics such as grid expansion, green hydrogen, energy efficiency. And we can see that through cooperations such as this one, synergies can be formed and we can learn from each other through know-how and technology transfer. And also learn understanding each other better just through the sheer collaboration and conversation we are having in 5 working groups under this partnership. To reduce emissions, we have to take an integrated approach by involving all stakeholders in society and work across all economic sectors on an international scale, across all borders. The decarbonization of our economies is a complex process and should be conducted in a just manner. The EU refers to this as just transition, keeping net zero goals set out by the Paris Climate Agreement, the reduction of 45% of carbon emissions until 2030 and climate neutrality until 2050, or for Turkey's case, until 2053 in mind, as well as the goals of set by national governments. And I think what is a very important point is here that we also focus on a just transition, which is also referred to within the sustainability goals by the UN. Our world is in parts very heterogeneous, and the energy transition, the green transition, and the decarbonization of our world will not only take people, but it will also take investment, technology transfer, and as I already pointed out, collaborative ways of developing and implementing strategies to form a more greener world for our future. I would like now to focus a little bit more on the energy system. And as many of you know, Germany is actually one of, as we would consider, one of the leaders in efforts of decarbonizing their energy system. But we still, as Tamer just showed, are highly dependent on coal-fired plants. We recently exited out of nuclear power. And so now within the upcoming decades, we want to reach net zero until 2045 even. We will have to revolutionize our energy system and rebuild it in many ways. Access to energy and its constant supply are key drivers of development and increasing wealth around the world. Today's economies, as I said, are still highly dependent on fossil fuels to meet these demands, and which at the same time, of course, increases their carbon footprint. But through new strategic plans, governments are setting serious targets to reduce the use of fossils and increase the integration of renewable energy resources in their energy systems, pushing for the energy transition and the reduction of carbon emissions. In many larger energy systems, such as many in Europe, the production is thought of from a more centralized perspective, meaning that we have large, often fossil-fueled power plants as part of the grid, which supply energy for 10,000s of households, big industrial plants. So this approach and the way we structure the future of our energy systems must be or may be considered from a different perspective, together with the increasing integration of renewable capacities. We also need to take a look at the role of grid flexibility, energy storage, green hydrogen, and in general, the integration of decentralized power plants in our energy production. Which is actually, in my opinion, also an opportunity, because rising energy prices and possible supply shortages of fossil fuels challenge societies and economies. We've recently experienced that with the Russian-Ukrainian or the Russian war in Ukraine, which affected especially Germany very harshly, as we were highly dependent on Russian gas imports through pipelines, meaning that we had a constant supply to very low prices, feeding our industry. So the energy transition in that sense actually offers new opportunities for countries to decarbonize and decrease dependency on these fossil energy resources. This may create ease for economies highly dependent on energy imports while reducing their carbon footprint. On the other hand, the energy transition raises the need and supply of new technologies such as energy storage, CCSU, and hydrogen production. The further development and scale up of production require further research and development efforts, as well as investments by the public and private sector. At the same time, international cooperation in terms of know-how transfer, joint R&D efforts, and the continuous exchange of ideas and progress are keys to success. And here I really want to point out that, again, coming back to the topic of just transition, that the supply of technologies also in markets where these technologies are currently not being developed and produced is very important to ensure a just transition and to ensure a transition where everyone in a way has access to further their decarbonization. The same goes when we talk about supply chains. We live in a very globalized world today where we have integrated supply and value chains that we also economically benefit from. I think the customs union between the European Union and Turkey is a very good example of how trade integration can be done and how both sides can benefit from that. Although we are now with this new environment talking about its modernization, which should be pushed for, I think. But this also requires that both sides work together on solutions, especially now with the CBAM coming into action and the possible carbon trading system also being set up in Turkey. So here really collaboration is needed in terms of investments, in terms of funding, and in terms of technology transfer and working together on solutions. Because, and I'm saying this from a European perspective, I think for us it's very important to understand also that we cannot just expect this transition coming sometimes, especially in emerging economies and developing nations. They are challenged with weaker financing structures, maybe higher inflation rates, maybe negative economic development, and these need to be taken into consideration when thinking of a more sustainable and greener future and referring to just transition and cooperation. I would also like to point out that in general, with the goals we are now chasing in Europe in terms of the expansion of renewables and also the implementation of a green hydrogen backbone, hydrogen production in Europe. I wanted to give the example of Germany, where we now want to reach a share in renewables and gross electricity production of 80% until 2030. In the year of 2022, we reached 46%. So we almost have to double our electricity or the share of renewables in our electricity consumption, meaning that there will be crucial investment needed in Germany in renewables, but also, and at the same time, regulations and processes need to be created in a more leaner way to speed up the implementation of these capacities. Right now, on an average renewable project in Germany, until it actually is connected to the grid, takes about 4 to 5 years. And I think we can all now calculate what this would mean for the expansion of the renewable capacity if we do not work on reducing processes, bureaucracy, and speeding up these processes. In offshore, we aim to have an installed capacity of 30 gigawatt until 2030, 40 gigawatt until 2045, and 70 gigawatt until 2045. Onshore, 10 gigawatts should be added annually until 2030, where we aim to reach 115 gigawatt of installed capacity. In solar, which is the larger capacity right now in Germany, we are even aiming to add 22 gigawatts annually to reach until 2030, 215 gigawatts. And how the policy side is trying to actually pave the way here is by increasing tender volumes, accelerating planning and approval procedures, and making all of this happening until 2028, 2029. So this is currently where we are going. At the same time, Germany is really focused on the decarbonization of its industry. Our industry, especially heavy industry, is still very, very large in Germany. And with the rising gas prices last year, they were really struggling, of course, to maintain their compatibility or the competitive advantage within the global market. So also in that regard, decarbonization efforts and switching to new technologies, producing green products may offer new opportunities to economies. We do have legit hydrogen expansion goals here. We think in Germany that hydrogen will play a major role on the path of Germany's climate neutrality until 2045. The goal is to ensure the safe supply of sustainable green hydrogen. I sometimes hear the discussion about the coloring of hydrogen. We, as the German side, believe that only green hydrogen is sustainable in the long run. We do now recently have also allowed the import of blue hydrogen. There has been a recent agreement with Norway, but these are only really for the transition phase until we can produce or import green hydrogen in enough to be independent from fossil fuels. But for the transition period, again, considering a just transition, it's also important that we do allow other colors for the meantime. So the installed electrolysis capacity should reach 10 gigawatts until 2030. But we do rely on imports as the key to fulfill our remaining demand. Currently, the German government is working on an import strategy in that regard. So we are again going for international cooperation here. We are now again, we have to focus on collaboration, technology transfer, know-how transfer, and really building strong and reliable partnerships. And I think this is also an opportunity, especially for countries such as Turkey, for example, that have high capacity factors in renewables and are very close to the European mainland and have pipeline infrastructure already in place to be part of this new global hydrogen economy. The German government aims to accelerate the market ramp up. There are different strategies in place to do that. The setup of 1,800 kilometers of hydrogen pipelines until 2027, 2028, as part also of the European hydrogen backbone, are the target right now. Also, the setting up of applications for hydrogen integration within the industry and other relevant sectors is the aim until 2030. Recently, we have had an example where the German steel producer ThyssenKrupp is now receiving 2 billion euro from the German government to build hydrogen furnaces. And here we can really see for the market ramp up, an interplay between the public and the private sector is needed, also from a financing perspective on either CapEx or OpEx investments. The German government is also aiming to set up legal parameters and standards to support the market ramp up. This is also being done more on a European level with RED II. We know recently had a new legislation come in place, but I think there is still a lot of speed that needs to be, or we need to speed up this process to just maintain and create a safer investment environment. Germany is aiming to become a leading technology provider until 2030 in this area, where we already have companies such as Siemens, ThyssenKrupp, but also smaller companies such as Sunfire and Apter producing electrolyzers using different technologies. Again, use of blue, turquoise, and orange hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen in combination with CCS, CCSU in applications will be allowed, but the German government does consider putting an emissions threshold on these capacities. We also need to talk, I think, when we think about energy transition, about the aspect of energy efficiency, which is often forgotten. One of the leaders said to me, we always talk about how we can produce greener energy, but we forget to talk about how we can save energy. And I think this is really critical when we think about energy efficiency. I recently talked to one of our member companies as a chamber. We have about 1,000 member companies in Turkey right now. And they have created their own success story with the rising energy prices. They were looking for opportunities to save energy or to produce their own. And instead of producing their own, they have implemented energy efficiency measures and are saving now 30% of their energy consumption compared to last year. And I think these are success stories that we really need to put out there, that we need to talk about, and also here we can learn from each other. There are a lot of projects underway, and for example, in the German market, the German government with subsidies does try to push the industry to increase their energy efficiency. So putting all of this together, for me, to reach this global agenda until 2030 and to make the Paris Climate Agreement's goals a reality, I think the keys are working together, learning from each other, seeing this whole undertaking, even in the context of economies and competitive advantage, as an undertaking that we need to take on together to protect our climate and to make sure that the generations that are coming after us have a green and a healthy planet, a sustainable environment to live in. I think we must keep in mind that this transition needs to be done in a just way. So we need to include all stakeholder groups. We need to include the private sector, the industries, to reduce the fear, and also maybe not fear, but reduce the potential of economic losses. And we do need to push for technology development, for the reduction of bureaucratic procedures, but also find new ways of pushing for the expansion of green energy. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I can also post my email address here in the chat. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to me afterwards or follow me or connect on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Sayın Pauline Seyfert'e değerli katkıları ve konuşmalar için çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
We would like to thank Pauline Seyfert for her major contribution. Is there anyone who wants to contribute or ask any questions?
Şimdi sizlere son konuşmacımız Şura Enerji Dönüşüm Merkezi'nde kıdemli enerji analisti Yael Taranto'yu takdim ediyorum. Uzmanlık alanları enerji ekonomisi, enerji finansmanı, düşük karbonlu enerji dönüşümü politikaları olan Sayın Taranto, Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nde Smith College'da ekonomi alanında lisans ve Fordham Üniversitesi'nde uluslararası politik ekonomi ve kalkınma alanında yüksek lisans yapmıştır. 2018 döneminde Türkiye Sanayi Kalkınma Bankası'nda yönetici ekonomist olarak çalışan Taranto, 300'den fazla şirket için kredi değerleme ve fizibilite raporları hazırladı. Enerji sektöründe yaklaşık 200 adet projede yer alan Taranto, bunun yanında Türkiye'nin ilk özel sektör doğal gaz ve elektrik dağıtım projelerinde danışmanlık yapmıştır. Sayın Yael Taranto'yu konuşmalarını yapmak üzere davet ediyorum.
Now I introduce you our final speaker, Yael Taranto, Senior Energy Analyst at Shura Center for Energy Transition. Mrs. Taranto, whose areas of expertise are energy economics, energy finance, and low carbon energy transformation policies, hold a bachelor's degree in economics from Smith College in the USA and master's degree in international political economy and development from Fordham University. Taranto worked as a manager economist at the Turkish Industrial Development Bank in 2018, prepared credit evaluation and feasibility reports for more than 300 companies. Taranto, who took part in approximately 200 projects in the energy sector, also provided consultancy on Turkey's first private sector natural gas and electricity distribution projects. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yael Taranto for her speech.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to extend my thanks to Professor Esra Yüksel Acı for inviting me to this conference. And I would also like to extend my thanks to my fellow speakers who preceded me and made very, very good and interesting remarks. And they have also made my job a lot easier in terms of the messages that I would like to give today. And also a very special thanks to the audience, because I strongly believe that this is an interactive process. And I would like to stress at the very beginning that at the Shura Energy Transition Center, we are open to dialogue, we're open to questions. Today I'm here, and me and my colleagues will always be available to discuss Turkey's energy transition journey. Now I would like to share some slides as food for thought, and hopefully we can discuss some of these issues also at later stages. Okay, I hope everyone can see the slides now. What I would like to talk about today is Turkey's energy transition outlook, challenges and opportunities. Especially Professor Tamer Atabarut stressed very strongly during his presentation that what we need is more political will and policies. So I would like to stress that point in this presentation, that there are opportunities as well as challenges for the world, as Professor Atabarut stressed, and also for Turkey, as I would like to talk a little bit about today. And I would also like to thank Pauline Sekfert for bringing up energy efficiency, which will be the focus of my presentation today. Just a little small word on the Shura Energy Transition Center where I work. What we are is a transparent platform working for Turkey's energy transition with Turkey's priorities, stimulating discussion on our energy sector among all interested stakeholders. And what we do, how we do it, is we provide fact-based, unbiased, and independent research and analysis. I would encourage you to go into our website and look at some of the reports that we have produced for Turkey, ranging from topics from grid resilience to energy transition financing to more recently just transition. And again, we cover technology, economics, and policies. And what we try to do is to contribute to the debate on Turkey's energy transition. The main issue here is in the energy sector, we have what we call an energy trilemma. What you try to do is you try to balance energy security with energy sustainability and energy affordability. These are the three pillars of how we should be providing energy. And sometimes there are conflicts between these aims which need to be reconciled. And at the same time, what we're trying to do is to achieve an energy transition. So while we're achieving the energy transition, we should be keeping in mind this energy trilemma. And the energy transition itself has three main pillars, which are renewable energy, energy efficiency, and electrification. Again, a word on the energy transition, what we're achieving here, because what we're achieving is not just simply changing the energy sources that we're using. This is, of course, the core of it. But what we're doing is, while we're doing that, we're also transforming from a more centralized and unidirectional structure to which places customers or users, I would say, at the end of the supply chain to a more distributed and interactive structure where the consumer is at the focus. And through that, the whole digitalization process is a very important component of that. Now we talked about the energy trilemma. Let's see where Turkey is standing in the energy trilemma. One issue is energy security, and on the left panel you can see that. We have a lot of reliance on imported fossil fuels. And this is also a major factor in Turkey's persisting foreign trade and current account deficits. It makes us more dependent in general as a country. And it also makes us dependent on international fossil fuel prices, and particularly crude oil, which is also a major energy security issue. Now, our second issue is energy affordability, which has become more and more important as years go by. This is an interesting dilemma here. Okay, on one hand, we have serious subsidization of tariffs. But on the other hand, we also have still, despite all these subsidized prices, a significant majority of households spend more than 10% of their disposable income on energy. Which is sort of like a threshold for, almost like a threshold for energy poverty. So the energy transition is also important in both addressing this issue by using renewable resources, which are becoming more and more affordable by the day, with the cost declining very rapidly, but also with a lot of investments which are required for all these resources. So it's a process that needs to be managed very closely. Now, on the sustainability side, which is one of the main reasons why we need the energy transition, Turkey has it's 70% of its emissions are energy related, and these grow at an annual average rate of 2.8%, and they have grown so much over the past 10 years. And we also have 90% of the population exposed to air pollution, and none of the urban centers meet WHO air quality standards in Turkey. So when we look at that, we see that the energy transition is also an imperative with its relation to the energy trilemma. Now, what is Turkey's current energy sector strategy? We can pretty much summarize it by saying enhancing energy security and reducing trade and current account deficits by increasing the share of domestic resources energy in energy production and consumption, of course. What this brings us into is that there is a lot of support for renewable energy and also for energy efficiency, but there's also support for domestic coal, which sort of conflicts with the aim of energy transition. However, what we can do is do more energy transition, as I will show. Now, let's see what's Turkey's position in the global progress toward net zero. Turkey ratified the Paris Agreement, as you all know, in 2021, and set a net zero carbon target by 2053. Turkey's nationally determined contribution statement was revised in November 2022 and updated in March 2023. But plans and policy documents are still in the process of revision in accordance with net zero. And when we see Turkey's standing here, there are countries that have made net zero. There are a very small percentage of countries that have already achieved net zero. There are some 10% that have it in law. There are a large amount of countries which have placed it in their policy documents, and some in declaration and pledge state, which we find Turkey in this stage now, but will be moving toward, as we see in recent actions, placing it in a policy document. However, let's take a closer look at what Turkey has pledged so far. What Turkey has pledged is its GHG emissions reduction target for 2030 is a reduction. Previously, there was a 21% reduction, and now a 42% reduction from a business as usual scenario. But what this actually implies is that it's basically, it works out to be a doubling of the emission level in 2021 by 2030. So we're not seeing an absolute reduction here. Just a little note on where we stand again in terms of potential. We have 83% fossil fuels in our primary energy mix, and about 17% low carbon resources, mostly renewables. And this puts us pretty much in a stage with other countries in the world, as you can see in the presentation in the morning. Now let's take a closer look at our possibilities here. Now, if you look at the left panel, you can see, because it's important where we use all this energy. Okay, we need a lot of energy, but where do we use it? And what is the share of renewables there? Now we see that manufacturing industry is a major user. Transport is the next major user. Buildings are also have an important share, and agriculture and others have about a 10% share. When we look at our power sector, we see that there's some progress here. Over 40%, we have over 40% renewable share there, and wind and solar shares exceeding 15% and continue to grow. So there's progress in happening in power production. However, when we look at the manufacturing sector, when we have a well-developed industrial sector, but very sort of energy-heavy industries there, And also we see low carbon energy use becoming a major factor for export competitiveness. So we will see, and we see now some movement toward more renewable energy use, but the renewable energy share in direct use there, other than electricity, is about 3.3%. Buildings are rapidly growing. We have some 9 million buildings, and 65% of the population are active natural gas users. And there are challenges there with 4 climate zones differing significantly in demand for space heating and cooling. We currently have a 9% direct renewable energy share there, other than electricity. Transport is the major challenge. We only have a 0.7% renewable share there. And what we have is a stage where we have import fossil fuels constituting 78% of Turkey's primary energy supply. Now, some of these challenges are unique to Turkey, some of them are not. For example, decarbonizing or increasing the share of renewable energy in industry, especially heavy industry, transport, and partially in buildings, are challenges in heating and cooling, are challenges that are faced by the entire world, and the technological solutions are there and developing, and we will have some opportunities here for Turkey as well. Now, what we have here is that at the energy transition level, again, to reiterate the stage that we're at, we have renewable energy, approximately 40% of Turkey's total current electricity demand, with wind and solar developing. At energy efficiency, we have Turkey's energy intensity has been decreasing at an average 1.5% per year since the beginning of the 2000s. Now, this is not a unidirectional. Okay, you have it decreasing as a general trend, but it also has a fluctuating trend, which is quite different from the world average. We obviously need some more systematic approaches here, and we also need to speed up the rate of improvement here. The current National Energy Efficiency Plan targets about a 14% reduction in primary energy consumption from a baseline scenario. This is not from an absolute reduction in 23 compared to this baseline scenario. Now, the second energy efficiency action plan is on the way. It will probably be announced within the coming days. And it will have 2030 as its target year. What we have in our own studies, we have actually completed a study on Turkey's net zero carbon pathway. And what we have found, this is a very detailed modeling study. What we have found is that despite continued economic growth of like 3 to 4% per year, we can have final energy consumption remaining at 2020 levels after peaking around 2030, 2035. While power consumption will have to increase by 2.4 times. Now, what does this mean? Like this, to me, this means primarily what I would call an energy efficiency revolution. It means that you're not increasing your energy consumption, but you're continuing to grow. And this is very important. This is what you need to do in order to be able to reach net zero, because even renewable energy resources are not endless, and they have their own impacts, so to speak. And the way you do this is one of the major tools there is electrification. So you need to increase your installed power capacity from renewables while you do that. And at the same time, transform your energy system and transform your consumption system to match to match this new energy provision or this new transformation in energy provision. And if you look at here, you see electricity forming 21% of our final consumption in 2020. This will need to go up to 54% when we get to 2055. And this also is a major catalyst in energy efficiency. This is one of the major ways we achieve the energy efficiency. And how we do that is by electrifying transport first, electric vehicles, and also by electrifying heating in buildings and industry. These are the major ways, and heat pumps are an important technology there to achieve this. And yet, when you look at the savings contribution, for example, by 2030, transport is 22%, but you have mainly coming from tertiary, meaning service sectors and households. So by 2030, you would have your savings contribution coming mainly from these sectors, whereas as you get to 2055, transport will be the primary provider of savings in energy. We have made a study at Shura for like zeroing in on 2030 and what the energy efficiency solutions would be. And we analyzed like 16 energy efficiency solutions in 5 categories and also determined an energy savings potential for 2030. And the important headings there are regulations. You have to have standards and certification, energy efficiency audits, energy management, market-based policy mechanisms like obligations are very important here. You could have energy efficiency auctions and voluntary mechanisms to support that, but energy efficiency obligations are very important. You can have different business models like demand-side response. You can have aggregators, smart meters. Financing importance are key because you need to make a lot of investments also for that. You can have energy efficiency funds, energy service companies, and other financial instruments. And system efficiency, the technical side, is also very important. Time of use tariffs, grid integration of distributed energy systems. Distributed energy is a very important portion of consumer-based both energy efficiency and renewable energy combination and electrification combination. And transmission system and distribution system operators also need to collaborate very closely, especially if you're going to have very high electrification in the system. And what we found in our study for 2030 is that you can achieve a 10% more savings potential compared to the baseline scenario, which is actually a scenario extending the government 2023 targets to 2030. So you could do 10% about that. And you could have 40% of these savings in industry, 32% in buildings, and 28% in other areas. And the amount of savings you achieve will be 18 million households' electricity consumption. And you could also be saving natural gas in the amount of like the 11 billion cubic meters, which would be consumption of some 12 million households. And you could also use 300 million tons less coal in power plants. So these are actually modest improvements, but they have very important impacts. And $1 spent here for energy savings will generate $1.2 to $1.5 of benefit. And let me stop here and talk about our key messages in the road to net zero in this roadmap. We can achieve net zero without sacrificing economic growth and welfare. This is very important, and this is what is at the heart of energy efficiency. We can achieve the net zero emissions goal with maximum integration of renewable energy sources into the system, as well as increased levels of energy efficiency and electrification end-use sectors. End-use sectors are key. And with the use of grid flexibility options, we can integrate a very high ratio of variable renewable energy sources, meaning wind and solar, into the system. We find that by mid-century, you can have 90% renewables in the total energy mix. In some areas which are hard to decarbonize, like very energy intensive industries like iron and steel, cement, that require very high heat levels, you can use green hydrogen and other clean fuels with indirect electrification. And what you need between 2020 and 2055 is an annual average of 15 billion worth of investment in the electricity sector. And with these investments, you can decrease energy imports from 69% today to 9% in 2053, which is a major contribution to the economy. Also, I would like to close with some policy highlights. What we need is an integrated and holistic policy and planning approach with central coordination mechanisms, especially for financing. We need further revisions in energy targets and their implementation, possibly a revision of the NDC. We need to develop mechanisms to speed up the integration into the international Green Deal, such as carbon taxing and emissions trading. We need to facilitate new enabling technologies, energy storage, green hydrogen, heat pumps, electric vehicles, digitalization. We may need some more revisions in the feed-in tariff, and also development of alternative income models for renewable energy, especially long-term corporate PPAs. Power purchase agreements, that is. We need a consumer-focused energy policy. We need emphasizing combining energy efficiency, electrification, and distributed renewable energy for decarbonization of heating, cooling, and transportation. This is very important. And we need a decarbonization-friendly industrial and transport policy, emphasizing a shift toward higher value-added and less energy-intensive sectors and transport modes. This will be the key to actually achieving the energy efficiency revolution that I was talking about. And of course, we need an emphasis on just transition policies to maximize benefits of the transition while minimizing or compensating for the negative impacts. Let me stop here. And thank you all very much for listening. And I would very much appreciate any questions that you may have.
Sayın Nihal Taranto'ya değerli katkıları için teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Değerli katılımcılarımızın herhangi bir konuşmacımıza sorusu varsa alabiliriz şu anda.
We would like to thank Yael Taranto for her major contribution. Is there anyone who wants to contribute and ask any questions for the panelists?
Sayın katılımcılar, açılış panelimiz sona ermiştir. Katkılarınız için teşekkür ederiz. Programımız saat 1.30'da Yeşil Mutabakat, Enerji Yoğun Sektörler ve Türkiye, ardından saat 3'te Geleceğin Enerjisi Yeşil Hidrojen temalı paneller ile devam edecektir. Katılımlarınızı bekliyoruz.
Dear participants, our opening session has ended. Our conference will continue with the panel themed Green Deal, Energy Intensive Industries and Turkey at 1:30 p.m., followed by the Future of Energy Green Hydrogen panel at 3 p.m. Thank you for your participation and contribution.
Teşekkür ederim ben de düzenleme komitesi adına tüm konuşmacılarımıza. Öğleden sonra panellere bekliyoruz sizleri hocalarım.
İnşallah. Görüşmek üzere. Başarılar.
Görüşmek üzere hocalarım.
Thank you.
Hoşça
Thank you
kalın.
very much.
İyi çalışmalar.
Teşekkürler Pauline. Hoşça kal.